Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to review the main opposition leader questions from Prime Minister's questions yesterday. The bonus thrown in from Caroline Lucas, who drew an explosive reaction from Tory MPs, all connected with Johnson's failure to actually lead the way with sanctions on Putin's regime, of course. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So Keir Starmer up first for Labour. He started off by making the point that Johnson promised a full package of sanctions following an invasion. It's absolutely true. Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, all talked about leading the way. They were going to be really tough on Putin if he dared, set foot in Ukraine, well, more so than normal. And then when it came, nothing. So Starmer asked, well, if not now, when? Then Johnson responded by saying that there were 275 people subject to sanctions. The 3 that were mentioned yesterday were just additions to the list. Now, here's the thing. Granted, there were sanctions already on some people connected to Putin of some type. When we say he's placed sanctions on just 3 oligarchs, what's that worth? We still mean it. The purpose of the sanctions is to dissuade or encourage certain behaviours, depending on your point of view. They're not a punishment. It's not a punishment. They're a means to an end. It's a way of saying, look, we don't want you to behave like this. Sanctions in place. If you stop behaving like this, we'll remove the sanctions. That's how it works. The previously applied sanctions did not dissuade the behaviour that we wish to discourage here, that is the invasion of a sovereign country. As such, Johnson cannot claim that the previous sanctions have any relevance. He can't bring them up because they didn't work. What we're wanting him to do in the interest of a peaceful resolution here, what we want him to do is to apply sanctions that will work. If you've applied sanctions in the past and they didn't work, don't bring them up. They didn't work. Johnson did then repeat what he said the previous day, that more of sanctions were to come. But, I mean, that was Starmer's question, really. He asked when. Didn't ask anything else. He didn't say, oh, these sanctions are a bit rubbish. Well, he did, because they are. But the question was, when are you going to do more? We didn't get an answer to that. So then Starmer said, look, we may have misunderstood here. If you're going to go further, Labour may support these measures. And he asked the Prime Minister, are you going to go further, basically? What are you going to do? And then Johnson just responded that he has the power to target any Russian entity, he said. And again, you think, well, hang on. This is like so many of his responses, really. It's not a defence of his position or an explanation of what he intends to do. We know he can target anyone supporting Putin. The question is, when's he going to use that power? That's what we're asking. We're not asking if he can do it. We know he can do it. When are you going to do it? Then for the third question, I'm going to say I'm a little bit at odds here. So Labour had already called for RT, which was formerly Russia Today, to have its broadcast licence reviewed. Labour had called it a propaganda tool for Putin, and Starmer again asked yesterday if the government will ask Ofcom to review the licence. Now, before I go through the answer on this one, to which there was an answer, happy days, my view on it is, yes, RT is obviously a Kremlin propaganda tool. Let's be honest, there are very few major media outlets that are not. I don't mean Kremlin propaganda tools, but propaganda tools for someone. And I would suggest hardly any that would be familiar to large sections of the population are genuinely honest. They're all presenting a view and have to present a particular view. Even the ones that are not doing it as the tool of some fascist state. They may be representing a billionaire's interests, for example. Or it may not be. It may not be a billionaire's interest. It may be the interest of a particular group. But most media outlets have to present a particular political line. That's basically the definition of propaganda, isn't it? Presenting a political point of view. I'll be honest. I am not persuaded that we should normalise the idea of the government shutting down media organisations because they're biased. It would be different if we had robust laws in place to prevent absolutely ridiculous bias in the media, but in this country, we do not. But that is my view. As it happens, Johnson did confirm that Ofcom had been asked to review the licence, but also said that the UK had a culture of free speech. I mean, not that you know it from him and his compadres, who are constantly moaning about being cancelled whilst on their third national media platform of the week. Starmer eventually moved on to the issue of their proposal for the economic crime bill, which would tighten the rules on foreign money coming into UK politics. Johnson countered by saying the biggest foreign donations recently went to a Labour MP from someone from the Chinese Communist Party. And a lot of Conservatives thought, boom, Johnson's come back there firing. It's like, no, it's not even remotely true, of course. Also, that donation, which was to a Labour MP, did not result in any favours because the MP in question, Barry Gardiner, had no power to grant any favours. He didn't know she was a spy at the time. And I'll tell you who else didn't know she was a spy at the time. The David Cameron and Theresa May, who have had close association with this same spy and, at the time, were head of government. They were in a position to act on her lobbying. Gardiner wasn't. Second thing to note is it was pointed out to Liz Truss on a morning interview yesterday that a single donor, just one Russian donor, close links to Putin, donated nearly £2 million to the Conservative Party, just her alone. In fact, Boris Johnson himself accepted £160,000 just to play a game of tennis with the wife of a former Putin minister. Naturally, the money was not for a game of tennis. I don't think he's it's not Pete Sampras here. But the talk afterwards is what it was about. It was the meeting. It's a bit like paying a load of money to have a lunch with someone. You're not going there for the asparagus. And this was just an attempt by Johnson to try and push the narrative that everyone is up to the same, because that's what he does. And it's not just Johnson, Conservatives in general do it. When they can't defend their position or that of their party, they try and stoke voter apathy by saying, well, everyone's as bad as each other. Oh, everyone's up to it, though. So that way, even if the public go, oh, this is poor behaviour, and the government can't shake that, they just make them think, well, everyone's as bad as each other, because then the ones who don't really have much of a moral compass could still vote Conservative because they don't care, they're up to no good. And the ones that want to use their vote ethically, if they see other parties as basically as bad, they just don't vote at all. Conservatives love that. Absolutely love it. I would like to say it's a desperate gambit, but it does work if you're not careful. This is why Conservatives use it so often. Then Starmer finished by urging the government to stop Russian oligarchs hoarding their loot in the UK. Johnson replied with another common one. Nobody has done more to deal with this problem. Again, it's what they do all the time. Claim that the government are actually doing more than anyone else. That way, even if people don't think progress is good, you try and argue that it's better than anyone else. It's like standard of living really poor. You can't argue about it. You compare the standard of living now to when Labour were last in power. It's unarguable. It's poorer, much poorer. But the Conservatives will say, actually, do you know what? If it weren't for our brilliance, it'd be even worse. That's their argument. They try and convince you it'd be even worse with someone else. It's not true. But again, to those who are in possession of the facts, you can watch this exchange. You can, Starmer says, oh, you're not doing enough here. Johnson says, actually, we're doing more than anyone else in the world. And you don't know. You don't know whether Johnson's on shaky ground and just lying, or if it's just a party political exchange where Starmer's attacking for the sake of it. No idea. That's why it works so well. Then on to the SNP and Ian Blackford. Now, he tackled the same issue with a focus on the dirty money, as he called it, coming into London. He said that he had raised the issue before of 113 limited partnerships being used to funnel nearly $21 million. But the government does nothing. Again, predictably, Johnson used this. Why waste a nonsense response? He said, no one's done more to tackle this dirty money problem than the UK. Again, factually untrue. Even Switzerland, which is usually associated with these things, and actually just this week, another dodgy bank expose, they do not deal with as much dirty money as the UK, if you consider overseas territories. In fact, actually, Switzerland's made more moves to quash it, really. And when it comes specifically to Putin, Putin's money laundering, London's the black spot of the world. Blackford then cited a US think tank report which said that the Tories are discouraged from acting because of the donations they're receiving as a result of it. Then Johnson felt the need to make something clear here. He says, we do not raise money from Russian oligarchs, but from people registered to vote on the UK Register of Interest. Yeah. Thing is, though, who decides who goes on that register? Who put them on that register, Prime Minister? Was it you? I think it was you. Because the point is that that many of these people were given dual nationality on the promise of receiving donations, which they duly did. And of course, just because the donor is registered in the UK doesn't mean they were the ones really providing the money. Then Johnson decided to finish off with a pop at Alex Salmond for accepting money from RT himself, because he's worked on RT. But there are a couple of things about that. The first is, may have escaped Johnson's notice. He doesn't really pay attention to things, you may have noticed. Alex Salmond is no longer a member of the SNP. But even if he were, and he easily could have been, it would not be a stick to beat Blackford with unless he had approved of Salmond's association with RT. But also, I mean, the other thing to mention is Blackford didn't even mention that. But secondly, Johnson needs to decide for himself what his position on RT is. Either it should keep its licence in the interests of free speech, as he alluded to in his response to Starmer, or it is bad and any association with it is to be attacked, as he alluded to with Blackford. Can't have it both ways, which is it? Do you attack someone for their association with it or not? Of course, frequently, Johnson does expect to have it both ways, but there we go. Now, I would generally leave it at that, covering Starmer and Blackford's questions. However, I am also going to discuss the question of a different political party, Caroline Lucas of the Green Party. She didn't half hit a nerve. Listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, when I asked the Prime Minister about Russian meddling in UK elections, he looked very shifty before claiming he wasn't aware of any. Yet, when he was Foreign Secretary...
She'd barely begun her question when Tory MPs opposite tried to shout her down. Wasn't very robustly dealt with by Hoyle, I have to say. Hoyle gets it in the neck a lot, and I've defended him quite a lot. He did not have a good performance yesterday. There were a few areas where he didn't perform very well at all, but never mind. Tory MPs trying to shout her down. Now, PMQs often gets a bit lively, and it certainly was lively yesterday. But this is extraordinary. Why this particularly aggressive reaction? She was pointing out that as Foreign Secretary a few years ago, Boris Johnson said there was no evidence of successful Russian interference. What was happening is, he was on like a show with Russian Foreign Minister. Well, I say a show, press conference. Russian Foreign Minister. The Russian Foreign Minister had said that Boris Johnson told him that he'd seen no evidence of Russian interference in British politics. And then Boris Johnson corrected him by saying that he hadn't seen evidence of successful Russian interference. So Caroline's question, she reminded him of this, and Caroline's question was, what evidence had he seen of unsuccessful interference in UK elections? Very sore point for Tory MPs in general, because this isn't just about, maybe them interfering in general election wins, but the unlawful Brexit campaign particularly. One backed very strongly by Russian interference. Now, you can argue how successful it was, how much of an impact it had, all you like. There's no denying that a lot of Russian interference took place. Johnson just responded that he had seen no evidence of successful Russian interference. Of course, we know that the Russian report states that ministers told our intelligence services to specifically not find evidence. They were told not to present them with evidence. But that doesn't answer the question anyway, does it? He was asked if he'd seen evidence of unsuccessful interventions. Reason being, if you are going to say you've seen no evidence of successful interference, your implication is that there hasn't been any, that our defences are robust. But you can only say that you've seen, if you've seen evidence of unsuccessful attempts, because the attempts have happened. Were the attempts successful or unsuccessful? If you can say they were unsuccessful and I've seen the evidence for it, fair enough. But he couldn't say that, could he? Because we know there have been attempts. That's not disputed. Were they successful? Were they not? You cannot claim that they were not if you cannot claim that you've seen evidence that they were not. Johnson could not answer the question because he, along with the then Prime Minister Theresa May, specifically told the likes of MI6 not to gather any evidence either way. But there we are. That is the latest on Johnson's attempts to protect Putin's wealth in the UK. Judging by the reaction of his MPs, despite their misgivings the previous day, it seems likely they are not going to push him to act. They have been told that, we need the money for our economy now. So post-Brexit UK, global Britain apparently depends on dodgy Russian money to hold our economy together like so much sticky tape. Is that the Tories' position now? An interesting take to be sure. But there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.